WGBB AM 1240 and W240DF-FM 95.9 Freeport, New York.
The views expressed in the following program do not necessarily represent those of the staff, management, or owners of WGBB.
Tonight to speak with us.
Thanks for having me on, and I hope I gave some...
I guess a few weeks ago we did a brief show on cutting the cord, and we were talking about streaming TV. We were talking about what most folks are doing nowadays with their options moving away from satellite and or cable TV. I think you're doing something revolutionary also, because not only do we have the option for affordable phones nowadays without contracts, you're kind of bridging a gap and allowing somewhat of a hybrid model of Wi-Fi and, traditional mobile phone service at these specific prices. Tell us about your, partnership with the Sprint network.
Sure. So Sprint is our partner. They provide the cellular connectivity for our service when there's no Wi-Fi connectivity. So the way our service works is kind of like a hybrid car in a way that it uses Wi-Fi when it's there and it's good. And if Wi-Fi isn't there or your Wi-Fi isn't good, our technology will automatically fall back to Sprint's nationwide LTE network without you even noticing. So what that means is if you start a call at home and you walk out of your house, you lose Wi-Fi, we actually seamlessly transition your call from Wi-Fi to the Sprint network. So that's kind of the things our technology does, and the partnership we have with Sprint allows us to do things like that, to provide really good coverage at really, really affordable prices, augmenting their network and Wi-Fi.
Okay, so I see a few things. You're talking about voice over Wi-Fi is one thing, allowing it to ride across from your own personal Wi-Fi, also with using multiple devices. Tell us about the TextNow app. How involved were you with creating that app?
Yeah, so I actually created TextNow, like the app, while I was in college with my classmate, literally out of our college bedroom. And then we kind of just kept improving it. We bootstrapped the whole thing. We published it in the App Store, and it was really well received. And from there, we kind of grew it into a company. And we started out as a free app, and basically, what we did originally was we wanted to give people with iPod Touches the ability to turn them into phones. That was kind of like our original value proposition, and we did really well with that. And then eventually, as our user base grew, our company grew, a lot of our users asked us for a feature where they could they could use the app outside of Wi-Fi. So that kind of made us think about, okay, how can we make our service better? How do we make it work without Wi-Fi? And that's kind of how our partnership with Sprint and TextNow Wireless was born. And we worked really hard to kind of make this feature happen, and then the byproduct was the TextNow Wireless, and actually we also were able to capture a lot of new people who weren't TextNow customers before. So that's kind of the evolution of our product and our company. It's been exciting, been an exciting journey.
Hey, Derek, I'm gonna ask you really quick because I'm seeing something about more than 58 million downloads. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a lot of downloads.
Wow, that's something really, really, really awesome. So I'll say this much, Derek. What are the best ways to learn about TextNow Wireless, the TextNow app? What are the best ways to get in contact with you via social media?
Sure. To learn more about TextNow, just go to textnow.com. And if you want to learn more about TextNow Wireless, you go to textnow.com/wireless. And on our site, there's also links to our Facebook, our Twitter, and our YouTube. And also on our website, we have a bunch of unboxing videos of the different phones that we sell. So that kind of helps a lot in sort of helping you decide which phone is right for you. And my personal Twitter is Ting13, at DerekTing13. It's DREKTI.
100,000 fans are on their feet.
Group that I've just started. So really happy to have Jessie on. Jessie, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Thanks for taking the time out tonight to join us on the live podcast. You could be doing anything right now, but you're hanging out here with us, with the folks at Late Night Parents. So it's kind of like the Wired family meets Late Night Parents. I don't know if this is like a WWE show or something, but
well,
really,
it's a pleasure.
really excited.
It is a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm super excited. This is awesome. My kids are in bed.
Oh, good,
so,
good.
At least the house is quiet. You won't hear the thumpings of my almost 3-year-old. But I'm super excited to take part in your show and talk tech and parenting and all things crazy. I heard your story about your water heater. I had a similar experience with my water heater. We were lucky enough, though, that I happened to be in the basement when it happened, and I was looking for a pair of socks, and all of a sudden I hear this gushing water. And I'm like, what is that? So I opened up the room where the water heater was, and it was full of water. But luckily, we were lucky because our home is pretty much, it's a fairly new construction. So the builder kind of built a hole, so that's where the water was going. Right. So it didn't spread out, but we didn't have hot water for a few days, and we're like, wow, this isn't fun.
You get to see the necessities of what you need. You need electricity and running water, and those are the things that we need most. I got to tell you, Jessie, I mean, my home was constructed in 2002, and I'm kicking myself saying, why didn't the builder build that funnel for us so that the water would funnel out and not into, causing all types of chaos? But that's neither here nor there.
No, that would have been great, because for us, our basement would have been gone,
right.
and it's kind of like she cave down here with our toys, because my husband also is into technology, so we have all the kids' toys down here, so it would have not been pretty had the water just gushed out. So we were very lucky about that. So we just, pretty much just had to replace the water heater. But all things considered, it went smoothly. So
I'm so glad to hear that. It was, like I said, it was kind of messy for me. It was touch and go, but the related services did step up and do their job, because if they didn't, I would be putting them on blast on Twitter.
But that's the thing. In my previous life before kids, I worked in customer service, and that means a lot when you're in need and you call a company, any company, and just need them to, like you said, step up and just do what they need to do. And it's amazing when it happens and you're like, wow, that was effortless. And that's how it should be all the time. And unfortunately, it's not.
Hey, Jessie, enough about me. And this segment is about you and all the great things that you're doing. I got to tell you, and that noise that you hear in the background is my 8-year-old causing some type of chaos in the family room. So it's really live. So just tell us about the Wired family. Tell us, how did it come about? Tell us about you.
Well, the Wired family came by way of rebranding. I started blogging in 2006. My son, who was about 6 months old at the time, I was home. I decided, my husband and I, that it didn't make sense living in New York City to go back to work because my paycheck was pretty much going to go to childcare. So I decided, it was best for me to stay home, and the plan was to stay home for a year.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the job market pretty much crashed. But
right.
And I was pretty much out of options. But my husband put me onto Twitter, and he was like, you can connect with other moms. You're a first-time mom. Everyone has questions. Just get on Twitter. It'll be a great way to meet people. So I said, fantastic, I'll do that. And that's how it started. And one thing, and you're going to laugh, is that every time I looked for parenting advice, I'm Hispanic, so looking for parenting advice in Spanish, whenever you would type in the word mommy, M-A-M-I, you would see half-naked women.
Oh.
And so I'm like,
nice.
That's not the kind of advice I'm looking for.
No.
So I decided to create a bilingual blog, and it was called Hecho para Mamá, which is made for mom, and it was a bilingual lifestyle platform. And I had that for a few years, and then I evolved. I was very much into tech. I always have been. And with kids, and I am going to age myself here, but I grew up in the time where dial-up was the hottest thing. So I needed to understand what my kids would be growing up with. And right. I needed to be a part of that. And I didn't want them to teach me. I needed to be, I guess, a few steps ahead of them in order to kind of like navigate through the life of these digital kids, because essentially our kids are growing up as these digital kids. Yes. And that's why I just dove into tech and family tech, because honestly, a lot of the sites that are out there, tech sites that are out there, are very technical, and the average yes. person doesn't get it. They just want to know, does it work? Yes or no? Am I going to have problems? Yes or no? Am I going to have to block my kid? Yes or no? Like, it needs to be very black and white when it comes to parents, yes. Parents and technology, because not everyone has that level, that technology. Like, my husband's into tech, so okay. I can always go to him. But everyone doesn't have an in-home tech person that they can go to. And that's what led me to rebrand and start the Wired family.
Jessie, I got to jump in here. I just want to let our folks know that we're speaking with Jessie Nuez of the Wired family. So you hit upon some key points, because you go to some of these sites, whether it's TechCrunch or Mashable, or whether you're going to Microsoft site and you're looking for specific, information on how do I do this, and they'll give you the technical information on it, but like you said, sometimes you need it in layman's terms, or as us both being parents, you need it in parent terms, saying, hey, I'm looking for XYZ because I want to make sure my kids aren't watching XYZ on their screens, and how do I control something like that? And
absolutely,
there's a gap. So it's really exciting hearing this from you.
No, it is. There is a huge gap, and I just think that for most of us, like I said, I own floppy disks.
Right.
I had a tower. It was just not the monitor. I had a big clunky tower that I needed to make sure that fan was running at any given time. And technology has changed dramatically since 10 years, 5 years, and the fact that our kids are being bombarded with so much technology, and 9 times out of 10 they don't know how to properly navigate it, and they are either compromising themselves because they're not aware that you can't click on a questionable site because you might download a Trojan virus. They don't get that, and their parents don't get that. Nope. And I think it's important to understand that. It's exhausting to try to stay one step ahead of your kids. But it's important to make sure that you understand what the life that they're going to be living. My kids are young. My kid, I have a 7-year-old and an almost 3-year-old. And my 7-year-old is very tech savvy, but I have limits on him, and I feel like you need balance, and I feel like I am born, both my husband and I are born and raised in New York City. I refuse to have my son look down at a tablet when he has this metropolis that he lives in.
Exactly.
I feel like it's such a disservice, and listen, to each his own, because I know that there are times where just putting a screen in front of their face quiets them down for the 3 minutes that you need to concentrate. And I completely get that. And I've done that plenty of times, but I don't think that it should be a replacement for real life interactions and real life experiences, because there's nothing a tablet or a computer cannot replace the feelings that your child has towards you or towards other people.
I got to ask you, because like you said, so you have a 3-year-old, 7-year-old, I have an 8-year-old and a 14-year-old. So there's that integration for you and I around that 7 and 8-year-old, but we're at the other end of the scales. I got to tell you, tell me the best learning app that's currently out there in the market.
Well, here's the thing. My son has my oldest son, my 7-year-old, has a learning disability, and he has something called an auditory processing disorder, which is, in layman's terms, it takes him, when someone communicates with you, your brain processes that information instantly. For him, it takes him a little while longer.
Okay.
And the apps that I use for him are a lot of language apps. I had reading apps, Reading Rainbow, love it.
Yes.
I use Bop It, is great as well because it's like speed. I have Fast Forward, which is part of a learning program for him. I have to say that my kids don't use apps. They don't use the tablets to play with apps. They have the apps they use are more education based in that sense. They have this one called Bebop. It's like a programming. So I have him do that. He has by the time he gets out of school, he's pretty much burned out. So he actually doesn't even touch, oddly enough, he doesn't even touch the tablet. My 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old, he's going to be 3 on Saturday. He is full-fledged, terrible to, I think I own the world. He thinks he's 14, so we may have more in common here than we may think. But he is very much into the PBS apps. I have audiobook apps for them, and they listen to books that way. Very boring stuff, I have to say. There's nothing action-packed in that sense, just because I want them to just enjoy themselves, enjoy each other, and fight and just interact with each other. So there's a limit, like I mentioned before, there is a limit on how much screen time they get, because I'm very passionate about them learning about each other and learning about, what's right, what's wrong. And like I said before, an app can't teach you that. and that's what we're into right now.
I got to tell you, we're running short on time, but I got to get you back for a one-on-one because you started to dig into so many different topics. I got to ask you really quickly. We have a little bit of time, but it's so good speaking with you. From your end, tell me something. When you want to put away the apps and you want to put away technology, what are you currently reading right now?
I'm reading Little Life, and the author's name is Hanya Yanagihara. I'm totally butchering that last name. I made a promise to myself to read 4 books a month because I needed to read more and be more disconnected and show my kids. I have a love for reading, and I want my kids to have that same love for reading that I do. And I don't care if it's on the Kindle or on, in a reading app or an audiobook, but I want them to know that the more they read, the more they'll learn, in reference to Dr. Seuss. But
yes.
They need reading is fundamental, and I want my kids to fully understand that and fully know how much they can really learn when they just pick up a book and get lost. There's nothing better than getting lost in a book. And I want my kids to experience that.
I got to tell you, one of the books that I'm reading, because in the line of work that we do is so similar, because we are expected to be brand ambassadors. We're expected to blog about this, talk about that, jump on this show, do this segment, and there's a lot of parallels here. But I'm reading Dare to Be Extraordinary. It's a collection of positive life lessons from African American fathers, because that topic alone is maybe a 5-hour podcast on where we're lacking, where we need to step up as men, and just not for African Americans, just for all dads. But
absolutely,
this is the specific book I'm reading.
But even culturally,
yes.
Absolutely.
I got to tell you this much: we got to talk a little business. You got to talk a little business because Big Brother and Big Sister will be listening to this podcast. Give me your thoughts on. I'm a newbie. I am totally a newbie, and you know where I'm going with this, Jessie.
Yes.
Tell me about FiOS New York. It's been great for me for 3 weeks, but you have years worth.
Yes, I've been a customer for 11 years. The minute it became available in our area, we jumped, and it was so in demand that we actually had someone from New Jersey come out to New York to install our service. And it was phenomenal. The technician came out, and there was some kind of a glitch that we couldn't get the service up and running. And he was in my house for like 6 hours until it was fixed. Like, he was calling. It was amazing. And we have not had an issue at all. And I work from home. My husband works from home from time to time, and we're always connected, and there has never been an issue. We are either on a tablet, on a laptop, on, watching, streaming something, on our TV, and we have a smart TV, so we have the apps built in. So it's always being always connected. That's pretty much our life. And with FiOS, we have had nothing but amazing service. And I'm going to go back to customer service. Their customer service has always been superb. And I can count on one hand, on 3 fingers, the amount of times that I've had to call with an issue. In 11 years, it's unheard of. And they're always on point. That's my biggest thing is that they're always on point. And you pay for what you get, and that's also important, because I'm a parent of 2 kids, and kids are expensive, and I want my money to stretch just a little. And with FiOS, you get what you pay for. If you don't want a certain service, you don't pay for that service. And it's just knowing that you have something you can depend on, especially when you're always connected, and the high speed, the pictures that I can upload, the download speed, it's amazing. And the amount of shows you can save on your DVR, the list goes on. And like I said, it's been 11 years, and there's no stopping us. And I told my husband, if we ever leave New York City, we need to make sure that FiOS is wherever we are. We plan on going because there's why go with someone else when you've had such amazing service for so long.
So true. I got to tell you, I'm a newbie. I will hold off from my comments because, like I said, you and I are going to do several podcasts because there's so many different topics we can talk about. Our next guest that we do have in the queue, she's a mom, she's a software engineer, and she's created an app and a hardware device called Screen. So I don't know if you have time or not to hang on to listen, but you have the link. You have the link. You can stream it because it's so interconnected of what all the different items that we're talking about tonight. Like I said, it was a blast to have you. I want to give you a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Oh, please. You're everywhere digitally, all over the place. So what I want you to do is take this time out, let our listeners know where they can find you, where they can find your work, your website. You know, you are a brand ambassador. So take the time out right now. Let our listeners know where can we find Jessie Nuez.
Well, the best place to find me is on Twitter, at Jessie Nuez. Anywhere that you find me, it's Jessie Nuez. I keep it simple. Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook is The Wired Family. And my site is called thewiredfamily.com. And it has been an absolute pleasure to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Oh, Jessie, come on. Like I said, we always talk in the chat room and our super private FiOS New York chat room that no one's supposed to know about. That, you know, it was great doing a Twitter chat with you last Monday and also with the rest of the team. I'm looking forward to great things for our team. I'm like I said, I'm glad to be a part of the team, glad to know you. All the best to you, your family, and your husband. And
thank you. Likewise. Thank you.
We will be talking. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. And we need to talk sports. Baseball season is right around the corner.
Oh, yes, it is.
100.
So, Nicholas Thurkettle, actor, writer, co-author of Seen by Moonlight.
.9 Freeport, New York.
I'm Little Teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
Now that, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
We are live outside the home of Joe and Rosie Goddard, where a pretty big tickle fight broke out just minutes ago. Sources say their father instigated the laughter. Let's go inside for a comment.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Oh, please. You're everywhere digitally, all over the place. So what I want you to do is take this time out, let our listeners know where they can find you, where they can find your work, your website. You know, you are a brand ambassador. So take the time out right now, let our listeners know where can we find Jessie Nuez.
Well, the best place to find me is on Twitter, at Jessie Nuez. Anywhere that you find me, it's Jessie Nuez. I keep it simple. Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook is The Wired Family. And my site is called thewiredfamily.com. And it has been an absolute pleasure to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Oh, Jessie, come on. Like I said, we always talk in the chat room and our super private FiOS New York chat room that no one's supposed to know about. That it was great doing a Twitter chat with you last Monday, and also with the rest of the team. I'm looking forward to great things for our team. I'm like I said, I'm glad to be a part of the team. Glad to know you. All the best to you, your family, and your husband. And
thank you. Likewise. Thank you.
We will be talking. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. And we need to talk sports. Baseball season's right around the corner.
Oh, yes, it is.
100.
So, Nicholas Thurkettle, actor, writer, co-author of Seen by Moonlight. I mean, we want to thank you so much on short notice joining us this week. We really appreciate it, you spending a few minutes with us. So welcome.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you so much.
And I guess, Nick, we're going to just get right into it because, I mean, what we've seen in the past, couple of weeks with Virgin Galactic, the Antares rocket, give us an overview of the latest information on what's caused these two serious space setbacks to occur within a few hours of each other, and how to make sure these similar incidents don't happen again.
Well, we do have two real catastrophes, and we have to use that word. The Antares rocket, thank goodness, no one was injured. I mean, we lost an incredible amount of equipment. There were actually a large number of kids' science projects loaded onto that rocket that were going to go up to the space station. So I'm sure there's a whole lot of heartbroken kids right now about that. But thank goodness no injuries. Whereas in the case of Virgin Galactic, obviously we did, have one fatality from it, and that's. It does force you to take some perspective on the whole thing. You really had two very different causes when it came to these accidents. In the case of the Antares rocket, you had an engine which was originally called the NK-33 engine, which was actually built by the Soviet Union back in the late 60s. Now, this was a piece of technology that was designed to put Soviet cosmonauts on the moon, and obviously they never did that. So, you had these things, for all intents and purposes, sitting in a warehouse, and they were being repurposed by this company, Orbital Sciences, to fulfill a contract to send supplies up to the space station. So you've got, a very old piece of equipment that was designed for a different purpose entirely, and they were so sort of unfamiliar with working with it. The Soviets had an entirely different kind of research track to develop their space program from ours. So they were, outsourcing some of the project to Ukrainian companies from all over, just to kind of make these engines work on their rocket. So, the full story is still kind of being told as to what exactly happened. But, the consensus has been that it was, sort of a malfunction having to do with trying to make those engines work. Now, when it comes to Virgin Galactic, the NTSB is, already heavily involved in this, and they have an operating theory, but it's going to be many months before they put this back together. And the reason is that they are incredibly meticulous. I mean, they're going to be recovering every single piece of this craft and, sort of tracking the data second by second as to what happened to it while it was in flight. What they do know is that, it wasn't an explosion. There had been talk early on about how this flight was a test of a new sort of plastic-based fuel mixture because the previous fuel they'd been using wasn't kind of fulfilling the goals of the project. And so people were wondering, hey, they're using a new fuel. Has that been responsible? But the NTSB has already said they found not only the engine, but the fuel tanks completely intact. So there was no explosion. What we really have is a case of the ship just breaking apart mid-flight. And they have a theory as to why that happened. The way this plane is designed, in order to save fuel on the way down, it does what's known as feathering, in that a tail section is actually going to change shape in order for the plane to glide down to the ground safely with no fuel use at all. But what happened, it seems in this case, is that tail started to deploy while it was still accelerating and gaining altitude, which it's not supposed to do at all. and they're trying to figure out exactly how that happened. But clearly, the simplest mechanical failure in that regard, at that velocity and that height, I mean, it was catastrophic and fatal, as it turned out.
Nick, I have to ask you this question. It's for me, for someone who's a novice, who's on the outside, who's watching cable news and sitting there, and I'm going to say, is NASA sputtering and dying because the government funding cuts and lack of vision?
Well, it's an interesting question, and I actually think it's sort of a separate question to what we're dealing with right now. I mean, parallel in a certain sense. What we're seeing here, if you really want to step back and look at it historically, is that we're really seeing the government gradually detaching itself from a great deal of the business of space and really investing heavily in the private sector and allowing the private sector to handle this. I mean, both of these companies, Orbital Sciences and Virgin Galactic, I mean, they have government contracts, but they are essentially private entities that are in the business of putting things into space. And they each sort of have their own business model. They each have their own way of going about it, and they're all learning and developing and advancing as quickly as possible along the lines that they think will make them a successful business. So, I mean, NASA has had a great deal of difficulty in recent years sort of justifying its existence in the, and I don't want to get into political or economic issues, but obviously there's enormous pressure to justify what it is that they do. And I think the increasing reliance on the private sector probably has a lot to do with them sort of handing some of these things off and allowing the private sector to kind of take up some of this burden so they don't have to fight all those fights. But, I actually see that as cause for optimism, because if you think about it, we started building rockets to prepare for war, and now we've got these companies. I mean, Virgin Galactic, part of their business model is they're going to take ordinary people into space. I mean, right now, only people who are a little richer than you and I can afford the ticket, but that's their business model. That's their ambition. And I think that's an incredibly hopeful thing to send us and, as part of the Cold War, and that this is the mission that we're moving to, I think is cause for a great deal of excitement. And whether it's the government or the private sector or this combination that we've seen so far continuing to carry it along, I think it's, I think we're on a path that we can feel better about.
So I got to ask you this question, Nick, and just in the public eyes,
mm-hmm.
What does NASA and private sector need to do to kind of redeem themselves?
Well, I think for the moment, and obviously we've got a situation that's very current and is sort of changing day by day. I think for right now, for the immediate moment, we really need to take a moment and honor what's happened. I mean, death has always been a part of the space program and the space race. This isn't even the first fatality that Virgin Galactic has had to deal with. They had 4 people in 2007, I think it was, killed at this same test site in Mojave because of an explosion of nitrous oxide. So it's sort of inextricable from what's going on. And I think at the immediate moment, what really needs to be done is take a moment and really give reverence to the sacrifice that's been made. I mean, this pilot, Michael Alsbury, he was an award-winning test pilot. He had 1,800 hours up there. He was a husband and a father, and he knew the risks. But at the same time, I think we need to take this moment to kind of pay our respects. But at the same time, the people who take on this mission, I think they also have a sense that there's a higher purpose here, and that we do need to eventually keep moving this thing forward. And I think what they need to do is just find some successes to get us back in the habit of it, of feeling good about this. I mean, statistically, it's kind of an awful coincidence that these two things happened, because the track record overall has been really, really good and getting better by the year. But, stuff like this happens, and it really does cast a harsh spotlight on what's going on. So, I mean, yeah, they're going to have to take a moment and acknowledge that something pretty awful and tragic has happened. and then figure out a way to get themselves back on the path of success. When it comes to NASA, I mean, they have the continuing Mars mission that was an enormous success and something they could be pretty proud of, but that's kind of faded from the public's eye, and so I mean, we'll see what's next for them.
Very quickly, would you privatize NASA altogether?
At this point, I don't see that that's the right path right now, and the reason is that we've still got we've got an international space station up there, and it's one of the things that NASA has to kind of keep under its authority. And because it's international, because it involves, sort of high-level diplomatic cooperation with other nations, I mean, you've got Russia, which is Russia has the only means we have of transporting astronauts through the International Space Station. And if you've been paying attention in the news lately, our relationship with them is pretty strained. And so you have to have a governmental entity to be able to still be part of that process, because then it's, I don't know, I think it allows things to continue operating a little bit more smoothly in that regard, because you can't sort of get the politics out of it as long as these nations need to cooperate in this way, and all of their space agencies are nationalized as well. So I don't think it's the right thing right now, but I do really like seeing that both the government and the private sector through things like the Ansari X Prize, which is what prompted the plane design that resulted in the Virgin Galactic Spaceship 2, that we're stimulating the marketplace kind of both from the public and private sides, and I would like to see that happen. Yeah, it's not the moment now, but maybe we'll get to that point, and if we did, I wouldn't mind seeing that at all.
The portfolio, your portfolio is getting larger by the moment. I'm going to say screenwriter, playwright, author, rocketry expert. Add that also. Tell us really quickly about Seen by the Moonlight.
Well, Seen by Moonlight is a novel that I co-wrote with a gentleman named M.F. Thomas, and he was the one who really introduced me to this world of rocketry, because a great deal of the novel takes place during World War II, and it kind of peels back the cover on the German rocketry program during the war. And, a lot of people might not be aware, but a lot of the American space program came out of Germany. I mean, it was the German space program, because we sort of repatriated a lot of their scientists after the war, and a lot of them ended up working for NASA and creating a lot of the stuff that let us win the space race, as well as the arms race. So, when you dig into that stuff, it's really amazing to see that in the 1930s and 40s, there were German scientists already talking about how do we put people on the moon? How do we get that done? I mean, it's mind-blowing to think about, but the concepts were already there. And so, MF and I got really excited about how to tell a really thrilling story about, what might have been. So we've got a story that takes place sort of half in World War II and half at the end of the century in 1999. And it centers on this guy who's a seemingly regular American car salesman, very successful, sort of wants the American dream out of life, but he was adopted from an orphanage in East Germany before the Cold War ended. He's always kind of wondered where it was he came from, gets the opportunity to go to Germany on business, starts digging into his past, and finds that not only does he find out what his true parentage is, he finds out that he's connected to this conspiracy that dates all the way back to World War II and is still going on. So, you've got a race against time, you've got Nazi cults sort of, operating in plain sight, and I don't want to give too much away, but it gets pretty exciting by the end, and some of it is real history and some of it is stuff we made up, but we hope when you read it you won't tell the difference.
Nicholas, it was a blast having you. Let our listeners know how to get in contact with you via social media.
Oh, sure, absolutely. My website is nicholasthurkettle.com. That's NicholasThurkettle.com. On Twitter, I'm N Thurkettle, last name spelled the same way. And, you can find Seen by Moonlight at, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of the leading digital retailers.
Hey, Nick, we want to
skydive.
And we're live. So sorry about the audio issues that we're experiencing tonight. I would love to blame it on Blog Talk, but it could possibly be me. In the queue, you know, you can never keep a good tech down. I've been a tech for 20 years. We're speaking with international matchmaking expert Sherri Murphy. Happy to have her here. We've had a couple of mishaps over the last couple of weeks with my sick children and all types of issues. But Sherri, thank you so much for being available tonight. Hey, Sherri, how you doing? This is Ted. I said we've had all different types of issues going on, and we've had some extreme audio issues going on tonight here on Blog Talk Radio, but I want to thank you for making yourself available, and thank you for your patience.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Ted.
No problem, no problem. Like I said, my apologies for all these you know what? I'll take accountability for all of this stuff because technology is never 100%.
No, it isn't. We're not computers.
Right. And I will tell you, I can state I've been a tech for 20 years, and I still don't get it right all the time. The example is tonight. But I mentioned international matchmaking experts, to say the least. The portfolio is pretty deep here. I've got a bunch of questions to ask.
I'm ready.
I know we might be a little short for time, but if you can just give us basically you know your background on this specific topic, inside the mind of an online predator.
Well, I've been a matchmaker for 22 years. I own Elite Connections International, and I actually a long time ago was attacked by a guy that ended up being a serial murderer. So I've always been. I got away. I didn't get hurt. I helped catch him. You know, he went to jail, and eventually they knew he had killed like 12 people. But I always pictured online dating was going to be filled with people like that, and it's not all people like they are mixed in. So you have to be really careful. I mean, it's just like walking down a dark street in the middle of the night. Nobody would think that's safe. But for some reason, they just think, oh, everybody's dating online. It's a simple thing to do. But you have to really be careful. You have to do your due diligence. I mean, before you meet someone, you should have their first and last name. You should know where they work. You should know what area they live. So you can take a person's name and Google it and find out a lot of information that way. But just because they give you that information doesn't mean that that's who the person really is. So you have to, meet them in a very safe place. Let your friends and people know where you're going, but that's not going to do any good if you get hurt. So, just park in a valet, be always aware of your surroundings and don't leave your drink at the table, that kind of stuff. You have to be really careful. Goes for men too.
Gotcha. I was just going to say, what are some red flags that would mean suspicious activity is present?
Well, they say a detective wrote a book about this first serial murderer that he caught that got all his victims from online dating. And he just said, that at that point, 70% of the people online were married. So you want to just be aware that if someone is taking way too long to meet you and they're going back and forth with the emails, and then, you finally get on the phone number and they call you and they still haven't made a time to meet, they're putting it off because there's a reason. They're probably in a relationship, or, that means they're going to have a hard time getting together. They got to be really careful about what they're doing. So that is definitely a red flag when people take way too long to meet.
I will say this, Sherri. I know last month, about 3 weeks ago, I read the story by Ingrid Lynn about her slaying and being dismembered. I believe she was located somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, and you get to a point where some of these dating sites, per se, myself, I didn't meet my wife through a dating site, but you hear it that it's like just nowadays it's the norm. So,
right.
I mean,
Everybody's used to it.
Yeah. So,
and when it's the normal, like you're saying, when it's the normal, then people let their guard down.
I like to believe so, because I read that story because I read, so I'm located in New York, and so I read the New York Daily, and it popped up on the cover, and I said, oh my goodness. And, you kind of sit there and think the checks and balances are in place, but I guess it's to a certain degree. I mean, tell us, how is your company, Elite Connections, made the online dating experience safe from these type of attacks?
Well, we don't, it's not online dating through us. We have a group of people who either have tried that and didn't like it, or just don't want to try it, or maybe they want to keep their lives more private, or they're just safety conscious. Whatever reasons, they come to us and they pay us the amount of money for a membership, and then we screen everybody ourselves. So, we, in 22 years, we've never really had a problem. It's, people aren't going to take the time to come meet somebody face to face in their office if they're looking to kill people. It's just not, they're online, they're just hiding. That's easy. So
right.
We take that aspect out of it. It's just a safe way of meeting quality people, really. It's different way.
I've got to ask you a no-brainer question. I mean, I think I kind of know, but, why is internet dating such a popular activity? I mean,
well, not long ago, before the internet, everybody was doing personal ads. So it's just, basically the same thing, only it's online. So before you would get, the personal ads, they'd get a magazine or a newspaper, and in the back of that there would be these ads, and sometimes they'd have pictures, and I thought that was bizarre myself, but people did it. And the internet is just, it's a more fast-paced, quicker way. People can meet, I've heard people meeting 2 or 3 people in a day, 4 people in a day, and it's just a fast way to meet a lot of different people.
And I'm not sure if you answered this question, but I was going to say, how has Elite Connections been able to help people find the perfect match without the fear of online predators? I mean, you initially vet these specific...
Oh, yeah, we meet everyone in person. We check IDs.
Okay.
We do background checks on everyone. And in all these years, we've never had problems. So, if people aren't divorced, they'll tell us. We have had a few people that come in, they're like, well, I've been separated for 3 years. My divorce will be final in 6 months. It's just taking a long time because we have a lot of stuff to divide up. So, it's understandable, and I've never worked for anybody who went back to the ex. So, but we have very few of those. But people are honest when they come in because they don't want to pay that money to us, and then we find out that they lied, then we just stop matching them. So they always come in and tell us the truth about what's going on, how many children they have, and, recent photos and all of that. So, we're doing all that screening. We're the first date. So I've had some clients who dated online, and they've hired me to, sift through all the people and meet some of the, women or men that they thought would look like they were good. And, I'd meet maybe 10 people that they thought were interesting, and one of them ended up being a match. So that's a lot of people running around. That's a lot of running around for the client to do to meet those 10 people. And the dinners are expensive and all of that too. So, we kind of are the first date. We meet them and then decide who our client should meet. So it takes a lot of that work out for them.
I was just going to ask you, the question is, my next to last question was going to be, how does the world of matchmaking actually work?
Well, you know what? I joined the matchmaker 22 years ago, and I thought I'm going to be alone forever if I don't try something different. My friends were dating on the personals. They'd go to bars and meet people. It just wasn't my thing. So I didn't want to date anybody I worked with. I didn't want to date anybody at my tennis club. So I thought I'm going to be alone forever. I just never went out. So a matchmaker called me. I drove down and met with her,